Configuring the Ethernet connection. All of the ZonePRO models come with a built-in Ethernet connection, with the exception of the 640 and 641. When connecting your computer directly to the ZonePRO device via Ethernet, you need to use a crossover type Cat5 cable. If your ZonePRO has this Ethernet connection, one of these crossover cables should have been provided in the box. In most cases, connecting the ZonePRO to your computer via Ethernet is simple. Just connect the crossover cable between your computer and the ZonePRO, wait a few minutes for your computer to detect the ZonePRO and assign itself an auto IP address, and then open ZonePRO Designer. The icon of the ZonePRO should appear in the upper left-hand corner. It's now online and ready to be programmed. Okay, so let's take a look at the different ways in which you can configure this Ethernet connection. This training module may also help as a troubleshooting video, in the event that you experience difficulties when going online with the ZonePRO via Ethernet. So let's say we launch ZonePRO Designer, and we get this nifty little prompt. This is basically your Windows firewall asking you if you want to allow ZonePRO Designer to communicate through the Ethernet port. If you see this prompt, just click Unblock. If after launching ZonePRO Designer, your connected ZonePRO doesn't appear in the upper left-hand corner of the main window, start by going to Network and Properties. Make sure that the Use Ethernet checkbox is checked. Now, click the Next button until you reach the Address Resolution page. Wait a couple minutes and see if your ZonePRO appears on the second line down in the table. If your connected ZonePRO never appears, it's time to do some more troubleshooting. Go down to the Start menu of Windows and select Control Panel. If you happen to be in Category View mode, select Security Center. Now select Windows Firewall. Or, if you're in Classic View mode, simply select Windows Firewall. Start by turning off Windows Firewall. Also, take a look in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. This is your Windows toolbar. If you have any other security programs installed, such as Symantec or Norton utilities, try disabling or exiting these programs. Now go back to your Start menu of Windows and select Control Panel. Make sure you're in Classic View and double left-click on the Network Connections icon. This will display your network interface cards. In most cases, this network interface card will be named Local Area Connection. Whatever the name of your network interface card, make sure it's not disabled. If it is, right-click on it and select Enable. Now, wait a few minutes and see if this network interface card acquires an IP address. Once it does acquire an IP address, it should say Connected. If this card never receives an IP address, then move on. Go back to the Start menu of Windows and select Run. Now type in CMD, that's C as in cat, M as in Mary, D as in dog. If using Vista, just type CMD into the search box. This will open the DOS or command prompt. Type ipconfig and press the Enter key. Here we see our Ethernet card is disconnected. So let's go back and check our Cat5 connection. Once again, make sure you are using a Cat5 crossover cable, and make sure you are plugged into the Ethernet port on the ZonePRO, and not the ZC inputs or the link input or output. In this case, I had my crossover cable plugged into the wrong port, so now I just plugged it into the Ethernet port on the back of the ZonePRO. The computer now detects it and is acquiring a network address. So now I go back to my command prompt. Once again, I type in ipconfig and press the return key. Now my computer has detected the ZonePRO and given itself an auto IP address, which is signified by the network ID of 169.254, with a subnet mask of 255.255. If you know the IP address of the ZonePRO, you could now type in the word ping, that's P-I-N-G, space, and then the IP address of the ZonePRO, and then hit return. This would then give me replies from the ZonePRO indicating that the computer and the ZonePRO are communicating. So now I reopen ZonePRO Designer and go to Network and Address Tool. I click Next until I get back to the address resolution page, and now my ZonePRO appears on the second line in the address resolution table. I should now be able to connect to the ZonePRO, so I click Finish and select Network, then Go Online. ZonePRO Designer searches the network, and the icon appears in the upper left-hand corner of the main window, indicating that I am now online with the ZonePRO device. So now we've connected using Auto IP. Now let's try setting a static IP address in our computer. The default IP addresses in the ZonePRO will always be an Auto IP type address with the 169.254 network ID. Therefore, if you set a static IP address using this same network ID, you should be able to go online quite easily. Start by going to Windows Start menu and selecting Control Panel. Make sure you're in Classic View mode, and then double left click on Network Connections. Right click on your network interface card and select Properties. Now select Internet Protocol TCP/IP and then select Properties. Now click the radio button that says Use the following IP address. Type in 169.254.100.100 for example. When you enter the subnet mask field, it should auto-populate with 255.255.0.0. If for some reason it doesn't, manually enter these numbers. At this point, the computer and the ZonePRO should be directly connected with a crossover cable. Therefore, all the other fields on this page should be blank. If you like, you can now go back into your DOS or command prompt and type ipconfig, then hit return. Here we can see the NIC card has the static IP address which I assigned to it. Now that our computer has a static IP address with the same network ID as the ZonePRO, go back to ZonePRO Designer and select Network Go Online. ZonePRO Designer scans the network, and we're now online with the ZonePRO using a static IP address. So now, let's say your computer has a static IP address with a network ID that differs from the ZonePRO. For example, here we have a network ID of 192.168.0. This differs from ZonePRO's network ID of 169.254. Therefore, these two devices cannot communicate because they are not on the same network. To change the static IP address in the ZonePRO, in ZonePRO Designer, select Network and Address Tool. Click the Next button until you reach the address resolution page. Once again, you may need to ensure that your firewalls are turned off and make sure you are using a crossover cable for the connection between the ZonePRO and the computer. Now that the ZonePRO has appeared, I see that the IP address is 169.254.10.228. This is an Auto IP type address. When I compare this to the static IP address of my computer, I see that they are completely different and therefore will not communicate. So to change the ZonePRO's IP address, I left-click on the ZonePRO to highlight it, and then select Change Address. You may have to click the checkbox that says Set IP Network Settings. Once this is done, we match up our network IDs. The first thing we can do is match up our subnets. So I'll change the ZonePRO's subnet mask to 255.255.255.0. Now I need to change the IP address or network ID so they match. So I change the network ID to 192.168.0. The last octet of numbers in this IP address are the device IDs, so they should differ. So the device ID of my computer is 55, and the device ID of the ZonePRO is 228. This way, we won't have conflicts. Now I just click OK, and the ZonePRO will reboot with its new IP address. As you can see here, my IP address has been changed. Now I just click Finish, then select Network, Go Online. ZonePRO Designer searches the network, and the icon appears. I'm now online with the ZonePRO device. So here you saw 3 different ways of connecting to the ZonePROs via Ethernet.